To proceed with the simulation, I will go to the home page and I will click the Get Started button, which takes me to the calculator. And this is the dashboard of the calculator, or rather the first page of the calculator, where I have to define my demographic. Considering as pin code for Chennai, I put the pin code for Chennai and it gives me the detail for where this pin code is applicable. So we ask you the pin code information. From the pin code information, we retrieve the weather information for that particular area, and the solar radiation in that particular area is achieved to do the further calculations for your rooftop solar system. As mentioned, it would be a commercial consumer type which we are trying to simulate for a high tension voltage consumer. Here I would like to point out that we have tried to incorporate some policy details to show you that I select domestic category and you see that there is no high tension available. That is because under Tamil Nadu for domestic consumer, there is no connection under high tension and only low tension is available. Hence, it is pre-selected here. If I select commercial, we see that there is a choice between high tension and low tension. For this simulation, we are carrying out for high tension. Hence, I select high tension and click next in the bottom of the page. You can see that as we have selected the consumer commercial under high tension category, we find that these two metering mechanisms are applicable. If I had selected domestic, then I would get a net metering mechanism available here. I can go back, select domestic, LT, proceed further, and then you can see that we have got additional metering mechanism here. So we have tried to incorporate policy details as well as relevant other information that can make your choice a little easier to establish and to select. Some details about the metering mechanisms are provided in the I button, which will then allow you to have a better understanding of this metering mechanism. For this scenario, we select the net feed-in mechanism, and it's a solar plus battery technology that we want to try and simulate. I select these and I click next to proceed to define my consumption. As mentioned, it is going to be a 120 kilowatt system. If you enter an invalid value, that is a value under LT category, then it will give you an error that your load value cannot be less than 113, which is the limit in Tamil Nadu between LT and HT voltage categories. So I select a 120 kilowatt system and I have multiple ways of defining my electrical consumption. I can either define it by a single average value, or I can define by giving details of all the 12 months in this by selecting month-wise electrical consumption. For this case, I select an average monthly value and give it as 10,000 units that are considered as monthly average for the whole year. Now comes time to define how you have consumed or how the load has been distributed in 24 hours. As we mentioned earlier, we take a scenario where the consumer is consuming most of their electricity between 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Hence, we give a 50% load share, that is requirement between that time, and 30% between 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. The remaining time sections take in 10% each in this case. As you noticed, there is an error at the bottom when the total of the load that you have selected is not 100%. It gives you this error when you have selected less than 100% as well as when you have selected above 100%. This is to ensure that you give correct percentages or percentage contribution in each time section, which should be a total of 100%. We also ask you if your consumption pattern is different during weekdays and weekends. If you want to define a different consumption pattern for your weekend, you select yes and proceed by clicking next. Here, we can assume that in the same time section, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., there are some maintenance activities that go on or housekeeping activities that go on weekend and still provides a peak during that time. However, the remaining time sections take a different pattern here, and this provides you the consumption for the weekend. We can also define to what percentage that this weekend consumption varies with respect to weekday. If you think that your weekend consumption is more than your weekday, you can select positive numbers, that is either 25% more or 50% more or even 100% more. But if you think your weekend consumption is lower than your weekday, then you can select a reduction of 25%, reduction of 75% or 100% in this case. Here we take the percentage that it is less, 25% less as compared to weekday. So I select minus 25% and click next to proceed further. To select a battery technology, we have two battery technologies to select from: the lithium-ion battery technology as well as the advanced lead-acid battery technology. The lithium-ion details of depth of discharge as well as cycle life are given in the I buttons, and the same for the advanced lead-acid. For this case, I select the lithium-ion battery technology and proceed to define my dispatch strategy. The dispatch strategy is there to define when you want to charge at what time periods you want to charge your battery and at what time periods you want to discharge your battery. When I say charge, you are charging your battery to be discharged later for your consumption and hence take a part of your requirement, load requirement. There are two options to define your battery dispatch strategy. Either you can select auto or you can select manual and define your timings. If I select auto, in the I button we have mentioned that the charging time would be from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. that is 1600 hours in a day, and the discharging time will be between 6 p.m. that is 1800 hours to 2200 hours that is 10 p.m. in the night. If you select manual dispatch strategy, you can define a different time to charge and a different time to discharge. So in this case, I am giving 9 to 17 hours, that is the 5 p.m. in the evening, and discharge from 18 to 22, that is from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. Please note here that you will have to define the hours in a 24-hour format, with 23 being the last hour, and it will give you an error if you put 24 because we consider 23rd hour to be the last hour here. Taking auto as my dispatch strategy, where I charge between 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. and I discharge from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. I proceed to define my system financials. The system financials are taken from benchmark costs that are provided by MNRE, and we have taken consideration of hybrid inverter in the case that battery has been selected, with battery system cost taken from research. Please note that these values are all per kilowatt values and will be calculated as you select the solar system size in the next page. The total cost also is mentioned in the per kilowatt category. So once you have defined your system financials, which are suggested from benchmark cost, we understand that these can sometimes vary from actual scenario, and we have provided you with the possibility of giving your own system financials in case if you find a value that is different from what we have suggested. So in this case, I defined it as a 45,000 per kilowatt solar system that I am going to install, because I have been submitted a quotation by my solar installer who has quoted me at this, and I want to know what is the financial feasibility of my system at that cost. After defining my financials, I select next, and now I get to define my solar capacities. So as a solar capacity, as to define solar capacity, we consider that this is the point where you can calculate your desired system. For example, as I have given 120 kilowatt as sanction load, if I enter a value above 120 kilowatt, it gives me an error, because in Tamil Nadu, we can install 100% capacity of a sanction load and not above that. But sometimes while defining the solar capacity 100%, maybe it's financially feasible and maybe it's not financially feasible. And this is where we can use this tool to calculate and see if it is financially feasible or not. So I give a maximum solar capacity, and now I have to define my battery capacity. The battery capacity definition is in kilowatt hours. So it's the electricity supplied or that you would like to supply at maximum to have so much energy stored to take a part of your load. In this case, we have limited the battery capacity to twice of a solar capacity, considering that if you have defined the solar capacity for your peak size, then you would want at least 2 hours of supply. However, to do this simulation, we see that I consider a battery capacity of 60 kilowatt hours. Considering this, I click run calculator and I await the results. So as you can see the results from your screen, we have 8 parameters that give you a snippet of your results. We have the average annual savings, which are calculated for 25 years and then average for 25 years. The payback in this case is 10 years. The total system cost of your solar plus battery is in this case 70 lakhs. You have a return of investment of 4% in this case, with a solar system of 120 kilowatt and a battery capacity of 60 kilowatt hour. The average daily solar generation is 453 kilowatt hours, and the avoided emissions in year 1 for the solar energy generated is 130 tons CO2 equivalent. To find more details, we go into detailed report. We see here that you can the inputs that you have entered, as well as the load profile that you entered as percentages in time section, can be seen for different days in the year. As this is a weekend consumption, I have selected a weekend here, and you can see that this consumption profile is for your weekend. When I select a weekday consumption, you can see that my consumption pattern changes along with the peak as well, because you have defined as 25% less. You can also select a range and see how it varies over a period of time. So you can understand your consumption profile, and this helps you to determine your solar system capacity. Further, we give you the Solsavi result, that is for your system size, how much shade-free area is required, what is the battery capacity you will need for assuming a 2-hour minimum discharge. You will need an energy of 60 kilowatt hour and a power of 30 kilowatt. The cost for your installations, the solar system cost, as well as the inverter and battery cost, and the total cost that you will have to do as an initial investment. These savings and financials show that you have a payback of 10 years with a return on investment of 4.09%, a 25-year saving of 68 lakhs, and the percentage of saving in 25 years is 9.44%. You have a bill comparison where we compare electricity bill with system and without system in this case. And we have shown you the graph for 25 years. The difference in these two lines, that is the bill with system and without system, is your potential savings that you have saved in this time period. Further, we go into energy sourcing and we see that 51% of your load is being supplied from solar, while from grid you have consumed only 36%. 11% is the contribution of battery technology, and 62% of what you have generated from solar is now exported to grid. You can see that in this case, on a weekend, your export portion is quite high and your peak load is being taken by battery. While I can find a weekday and see that the battery size that you have selected contributes to reducing your load in the peak hours in the evening, and hence brings down your load consumption from grid during that period of time. You can export this by you can export and save this as a PDF by clicking export to PDF, and it will save in your local drive. You can click at the bottom where it takes you to our assumptions, where we have taken and detailed out the assumptions that we have taken for the calculation in Solsavi.